Hello, AWEEFians. Hello, this is Lillian. I hope you are well. I hope you all are having an amazing Saturday. However, today is a day, one of those days that the Lord has made, and I'm so moved. I'm emotionally, crippled because I have a special sister with us today. She is a junior sister of mine who grew up not far from me, and she is doing an amazing job out there in Europe and in Africa. And I'm so proud. You cannot even begin to imagine how proud I am today, sitting here today with this lady talking about a very special topic that's really causing trouble in Africa. So please come join us. Come join this live stream, share it out with your family and friends. The entire African community needs to hear this story. This is our story. This is what our culture is leading us to. This is what we are faced with. And today we are going to be talking about thriving in business and in life, how to stay healthy when we want to really accomplish amazing things. How do we balance our health and life? But before we start talking about health, life, let's just clear off the stage here with this quote, which says, exercise to be fit, not skinny. Eat to nourish your body, and always ignore the haters, doubters, and unhealthy examples that were once feeding you. You are more. You are worth more than you realize. And this is a quote from All Day Chemistry. I am so happy. I am so thrilled that we got to this topic. And we have an amazing doctor with us here today. This is our own very first doctor, by name Dr. Susan Njema Awe, alias Dtor SEA, who is a specialist consultant in internal medicine. She has a passion for empowerment, education, and healthcare. Thus, her feet are firmly planted in various projects geared towards community development. She is the founder and writer at A Sister in Germany, which is an inspirational website on Africans in Germany. She is and has been board members of various organizations like Camp for Medics, EA Foundation, EMED, and so much more, including as doctor, just to name a few. She already has so many awards under her belt. In 2007, she was the winner of DAF, the Prize of Excellence for Academics and Socio-Political Engagement. In 2013 and 14, she had an award from Camp for Medics. In 2014, she was voted one of 100 most influential Africans in Germany by the Heritage magazine. In 2015, she was the winner of Cameroon Career Women Award in Medicine. How couldn't I be proud? How couldn't I be nervous today? Thank you so much, Dr. SEA, for saying yes to this invitation. You are loved. I can tell we already have live viewers here with us. Please let us know where you're watching this live stream from and ask your questions, because this day is so important to us. Thank you, Dr. SEA, for coming online.
Thank you for having me, Lillian. It's my pleasure to be able to have this conversation with you and with our viewers on health, education, business, the African woman, the woman, so many things I'm passionate about. So thank you for giving me this platform.
Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a very busy woman, and we just need to really grab you, and we all want to have a share of your knowledge, the share of your wisdom, and the share of your generosity. So let's just dive in with the very first question. I know it's going to be a very big one for the community, but we need to start talking about it. From the African perspective, to be round is a symbol of good nourishment and wealth. It's a symbol of wealth and good life. That's what we were taught about. That's the way we grew up. You know, you have to eat to show that you have a good life. The rounder you were, you became the yardstick of everybody else. But there is a problem with this. Today's figures about high blood pressure, diabetes, heart attacks, cancer, which is ravaging Africa, is now leading to so many people thinking. Yet the culture is not changing. We see the figures, the culture is not changing. The mindset is not changing. And instead of looking at the real causes of heart attacks, diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, we, the normal Africans, we are thinking of witchcraft. So how do we start meducating the African community in their everyday life?
You're very right when you say we have this school of thought in our community that the fatter the better, the more attractive.
Yes.
Every thin girl growing up in our community did not have it easy. You can actually compare that to the fat girl growing up in the Western society. They face a lot of prejudices, and they have been talked under and stuff like that. And it's also but normal for people to think that the more you eat, the more you have in developing countries, because one of the markers of a developing or underdeveloped society is hunger. So he who is fat translates to he who doesn't have to hunger. So it becomes a status symbol. It becomes a symbol for well-being. When you get your first job, it means you can now afford to drink a bottle of beer every day at break time. Some people do 2 beers at break time, plus soya for 5,000 francs sometimes. And that is just a snack. That is just a snack. That leaves out the fufu and eru or whatever main meal they had for that day, leaves out the breakfast they had, and leaves out what they're going to have for dinner, and the other portion of soya they're going to have for dinner, which is another symbol status. So practically, yes, it means you're more viable financially, you have more spending power, but what are you investing this financial potential in? You're actually investing all of that in your body. You're creating a reservoir for all of that, all of those calories, all of those unhealthy fats, all of those unrefined sugars that might not cause a problem today, but 10 years down the road, everybody's surprised when you just fall off. And most often on weekends, because we also have the culture of corpse removals on weekends, so people don't sleep Friday, Saturday they end of village doing burial, and Sunday. And what happens when you don't sleep? Stress hormone goes up, high blood pressure goes up. And if you already have a risk, or maybe you already had undiagnosed hypertension, you could have a crisis where you collapse. And added to the fact that when people collapse in our society, unfortunately, people are not very aware about basic life support, to resuscitate somebody. Everybody starts screaming, "He don't die, he don't die." And if this person is not responsible for a longer time, chances are he might even end up in the morgue, in the mortuary when he's not dead. And so maybe sometimes, maybe he might even regain consciousness while in the morgue, and then dies from the cold. And then we have stories like, oh, they put that man for mortuary for morning tide on change position. Maybe he was struck to stand up. No joke. I really believe in this hypothesis, and I'll be very interested in a study that might try to prove it. Throughout this chain of events I have narrated, you see there is ignorance at every juncture. And that is
Yeah.
why I strongly believe in awareness, awareness, awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Education, education, education about healthcare, in the healthcare industry, out of the healthcare industry, because
Yeah.
the healthy nation is a wealthy nation.
Great, great. We have so many live viewers. I must acknowledge Sylvia Ayuk, Henriette and Guafo, who says, I totally agree with you. Sylvia Ayuk says, what is the topic? I think I brought up the topic, but I'm afraid if I put the topic with Be Live, then it covers Dr. SEA's face. But I will read the topic for you. The topic is thriving in business and in life means staying healthy. How can the African woman start taking care of herself? That's the topic of discussion, and we are getting to really, really serious discussion here, because Dr. SEA is saying that there is, because of the lifestyle, when you get your first job, you try to, live a good life, try to enjoy your salary. Then you get into some kind of, she says, some kind of, eating your soya and your beer and, not including your breakfast. You've not counted the calories, which you also have for lunch and dinner. So that's what Dr. SEA is saying with us here today, which is so much true. And she's interested in studies or figures of those who died prematurely and were taken to the morgue and died in the morgue. In fact, they were not really dead. So now, women in Africa constitute 50% of the population. They are the educators of the African community. How can we start using women to change this trend? And what are some healthy advantages that await us all at the end of the road if we try to change our pattern and become just conscious of the fact that we are overdoing it, we are asking too much of our body?
The role of women in every society, I think it's a question we shouldn't be asking. It's so obvious. I mean, women are the backbones of every society, even when they are not officially acknowledged. Mm-hmm. And especially when it comes to healthcare, women do not only play a vital role in awareness. Actually, in our community, women bear the most burden for ill health. Yeah. And I'll explain.
Yes.
When Papa is sick,
yes,
everybody runs to the hospital with Papa. Mommy has to go back home to cook food and bring to Papa.
Yes, yes.
Very often, if it's a dysfunctional family where Papa has one or two deuxième, troisième bureaus, chances are even Mommy's finances have to be sustained by her roadside sales. Mm-hmm, so consultation fee she has to pay. If it's short of blood, she has to go and look for someone who can give them a pint. She has to pay.
Yes. Yes.
And in our society, if you look into the micro society, you really see that the women are those who have saving accounts. So they bear that burden for health hospital, pay the bills, make sure he eats, and all of that. If he stays in hospital for long or he becomes invalid, who has to pay the school fees?
Mama.
So it's still, they have a huge burden of ill health. Swap it around. Mommy is sick. The situation is even worse. Mm-hmm. In most cases, if mommy is not from a family which is strong enough to sustain her and her family, we have an issue. Yeah. So focusing not just on using women as an instrument to educate the society, but also on empowering them financially, health-wise, education-wise, helps us to deal with the ill health in our communities. And when you go take the role of educators, I think women are men in our society. I'll give you examples, right? I started holding talks, health talks in Pidgin English. That was when I think my second year in med school. Yes. And I used to do that back home in my local community, local church in Mutengene.
Yes.
Imagine how many people would come. Sometimes we even had 100 people, 2 men. You will see women taking notes, 2 men.
Yeah.
But in that congregation, you have the Christian men fellowship, you have the Christian women fellowship, you have the women association, men association. They all get the same announcement. The women show up in their numbers. The men do not show up. So the women play a vital role. They play a vital role as educators in regulating as educators as part of the solution. If we empower them financially, it also helps. If we make sure that they are healthy and we really focus on women's health, right, and make it a priority, it also really helps. There is the reason why you have gynecology, a complete branch of medicine just focus on the health of the woman. So we can't underlook that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Henriette Guafo, who has so many valuable points. She agrees with us.
If I'm allowed, let me say a huge shout out to Henriette. Yes. Henriette, I love her energy. She's a power woman, and I'm so glad she's here to support us. I believe when women support women and when women who do good come together, magic happens. So thank you for coming in. Henriette, hello. Sylvia Ayok, thank you too. She's saying that she disagrees with me on this, and we should focus on facts and not assumptions. So I hope we'll have time to get into that conversation with her.
Yeah. I think figures speaks for themselves. But yes, it's a good thing. We are happy, Sylvia, we're happy you disagree. Because, there are two sides to a coin. We have figures proving her facts, and you may have figures proving your facts, which this is a good thing. We can then put these two things together to have a beautiful outcome. So thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you, Henriette, for your contribution. Please invite your family and friends. We need to talk about this. We are really walking towards the wall if we don't find a solution. And here today, I do not want to bring up people here just for the sake of talking. I am putting myself out here today, open in the air. And I'm glad you're here with me today, Njema, because you are like a genius sister. I am going to be frank with you. In 2006, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. Okay. And it has somehow been controlled. And all of a sudden, after ill health of my husband, raising up kids, having a job, and all my nonprofit, I found myself having a vertigo effect. When everything moves, you lie in the bed and the room itself is spinning. And I did not understand what this meant. I thought I was just being tired. And by the time I went to the doctor myself, my blood pressure was at 200 and 150. And she said to me, how did you come here? I said, I drove. She said, never, ever again. And I don't want to lie to anybody. I was this close to dying without even know I'm dying. We all know that high blood pressure is a silent killer. I would have been dead and leaving my 2-year-old here. So before people think this community is just for talking, you are a medical doctor and you would know how dangerous this is. This is my own medication. I don't know if you can see. It's a very high dose.
Yeah, okay.
Can you see? It's called Vascord.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. The site, so I can read it. Okay. Yeah.
And this is like 3 medications in one. 3 in one. Today, this is what I take. Now the high blood pressure is getting stable and maybe it's getting a little bit too low for my body, which has always known high blood pressure. Oh, okay. So this topic is really coming from within. It's something that I suffer from. I know my dad died of high blood pressure and diabetes. I know my mom has high blood pressure. So we really need to talk about this because many people are going to die so stupidly, as you said in the beginning, without even knowing, and we're not taking precautions. So how
Yeah.
What are your advice today for women? How do we start now? We don't have to wait. There is nothing that should stop us from starting today. It's getting out of hand, and we're going to lose family members stupidly. What do we do?
I think we've already started with the first step, awareness. And I would like to really acknowledge you for doing what you're doing, coming out openly, publicly, and saying, I suffered from a hypertensive crisis, because that is what you actually had, and you could possibly have a stroke, or
Yes.
by going by those values, and you would fall off and die, and we'll have stories of witchcraft, and we'll definitely have an auntie or an uncle who is responsible if we want to go by the way we usually tend to think in our community. So you coming out saying this, it's one of the things we really need in our community. I always encourage people when we have workshops in Cameroon. I said, know your diagnosis. No, don't say, when you ask, often when I talk with people, they say someone is sick and they're in hospital in Cameroon. And I ask, what are they sick of? Most of the time they can't tell me. Sometimes they'll say, you get fever. And that's the most they could go. So knowing your diagnosis is the first step, because if you don't know the name of a child, you can't call the child specifically. You cannot attend to that child specifically. So you know the name of your diagnosis. The next thing is know your family history. I'm sure if you know if you knew from the beginning that the simple fact that your father is hypertensive, diabetic, and your mother hypertensive, which happens to be the case with me as well, you would watch out. So sometimes when I walk out or when I pay attention to things that people are like, coming back to what we said at the beginning of the program, oh, you're thin or you're slim, you don't need to watch out, you look healthy. It's not about me looking healthy. It's about me knowing the risk I already carry and taking the necessary steps to prevent this from showing up at all in my life. They mustn't show up. We all grow old, but growing old gracefully and healthy and fit, it's important as well, with quality of life. So the second thing, as I said, is know your family history, so you know your own specific risk. The next thing is we have recommendations, international recommendations, which go a long way to reduce your risk, not just for high blood pressure, but for diabetes, for stroke, for coronary heart disease, which leads to heart attack, and even cancers. So overweight, if you can avoid overweight, right, it could significantly reduce your risk for all those 5 conditions we mentioned. Overweight is related to your height. It's related to your muscle mass, your fat mass. Big, huge topic we can't really focus on. But key thing is overweight. I know.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the BMI. I was reading a lot about the BMI.
Exactly. So you can use to guide yourself is BMI or your waist hip ratio. What we did in my last live video, Belle must go. If you go to our
I loved it.
Page, you can still have the video there. Otherwise, we could also send it to you via WhatsApp if you drop us your number. So those are 2 parameters you can use to just check your weight, your BMI, and your waist hip ratio. Then the next thing is what we eat. Try to make sure that you cut down on healthy fats. There's a huge talk about cholesterol. Cholesterol is very genetic. You have some people who have high levels of cholesterol in their families. Everybody produces some level of cholesterol in their body. But if you add a lot to that from it, right, it increases your risk, because this cholesterol kind of clots. Not really like a clog, not clot, but clog. It's like it builds a film around your blood vessels, and those blood vessels, if they become too narrow in your heart, blood flow will be reduced. It could lead to heart attack. If it becomes too narrow in your brain, you could have a stroke. Added to hypertension, you're running huge risk. Plus diabetes, even more risk. Plus a history in your family of all of this condition, even more risk. So that's the next thing, lifestyle. So watch your weight, the things you eat. Then the next thing we need to watch out is the kind of sugars we eat. refined sugars versus unrefined sugars. You have studies which really prove that from the time white rice was introduced to Central and West Africa, you have this non-communicable diseases increase as well. We have studies which prove that. We also have studies which prove the introduction of bread, white bread, what we call in Cameroon boulangerie. You can also see how it climbs up. The existence of all these conditions. So what is the difference between a breakfast with, let me just quote an example, right? What do our kids eat now? They have a piece of white bread.
Yes.
They don't put a thin layer of butter. That is if they are from the poor family at all, if they even have the bread, right? Let's go from the average middle upper class. Right. They have a thick layer of margarine, not even butter, margarine on it. And then chocolate paste on it.
Yes.
Yeah. Some even put now what they call jambon on it. We don't even know what meat is in it, how it was processed when it was imported and when was it expired, right?
Yes.
What does the child eat? That is what they eat at break time. Formerly, if they are poor farm children, they will drink water. When we start earning money, we want to show that we have the kids that drink what we call juice. If you want to take a close look of that juice, mostly just pure water and sugar. So this is a kid that has been fed from morning just on unrefined sugars, no vegetable, meat that we don't even know its source, right? Comes back home and in the evening, there might be maybe, let's say, gari and vegetable. But if it's a jabota, mommy, I want spaghetti or rice. And what do? Sometimes, I even had a child brought to me in Cameroon. I don't eat stew, I eat ketchup.
What?
We are running towards a huge danger programming the next 10 to 20, 25 years. So we need that awareness. It's what we put on our plate for us, for our kids. If you look back, I'll come back to breakfast. The same person who wakes up, right? When I'm by chance you happen to be Bakure like me, so you know Kwakoko Bible.
Yes.
Right. You wake up in the morning, those in the village, maybe they have their Kwakoko Bible from last night. And what do you have in Kwakoko Bible? You have cocoyams, of course, it's starch, but it's unrefined starch. You have red oil, which is in a natural form. You have fish, which is not meat, and you also have vegetables very most often in it. Now you see that if you put 2 grams of that Kwakoko Bible somewhere and 2 grams of that bread and patty and butter on the other side, trust me, the nutritive value you can't really compare. And then we wonder how our grandparents could grow old on those same food. So healthy is not healthy. Modern must not necessarily be healthy. So we need to have these conversations. So we shouldn't just give up all the good things and values and organic nourishment we have because we're embracing new trends while the West is actually fighting the consequences of these trends. They are struggling to go back to what we are eating now, to what we were eating back then. You know, so, and anybody who has lived in the West understands how expensive organic food is out here. So you also have that aspect, what you eat, how you eat it. Beer consumption is another thing. It also is high caloric. What the body does with extra sugar is just store it up somewhere as fat or as glycogen, but stores it up somewhere as excess, which the body doesn't need. And sometimes after a certain particular point, it starts causing trouble. I think you have. Then the next thing I would like to say, which could also help, is know your values, do your checkups. What I recommend is between 25 and 35. If you can measure your blood pressure, blood sugar once in 3 to 5 years, that's okay. From 35, once in 2 to 3 years, it's okay. From 45, maybe I'll do once a year initially, and then get to see what my doctor recommends.
So what you're trying to propose is that from 25 you need to get like a baseline where you walk to from there.
Just know
Yeah. Yeah.
Just know
We
it
have
does two
so
things.
many
It
great
gives you your
questions.
value, and
Yeah.
it gives you your value, and then it breaks down this barrier of taburizing blood pressure, sugar level.
Yeah, great. Now we really need to take some questions because there are so many. Thank you so much, all of you here. We have Cheryl, Fawn, Doreen, Henriette, Ajida. And so let's take from Elvis Fru's question, which says, what are some of the symptoms?
Of such an illness.
Yes.
I assume he's talking about hypertension.
Yes.
I'll answer his question, but I would also like to recommend our video on hypertension in Pidgin. It's called Blood Pressure Don't Match Fire. Yeah, and it's on YouTube. Otherwise, we could also send it to you if you drop us your number we'll send it to you via WhatsApp. So in medicine, we refer to hypertension or high blood pressure as the silent killer, because in most cases, it doesn't have symptoms. Just like what Lillian said, she really never had symptoms, and she was running a crisis of 250.
Yes. Yes.
That's and she's neither overweight nor you from outside you think, oh, she's sick or something like that. You understand? So unfortunately, hypertension in most cases doesn't present with symptoms. That is why I recommend at a particular age, just check, especially if you have it in your family history. Otherwise, in some cases, you will have symptoms when you have crisis. And that is why she had symptoms, because she was already running into a crisis. And a crisis means you're actually risking losing your life. That's why it's called a crisis. Some other people might have signs like headaches, especially in the morning, and the headache that is usually at the back of your neck. It's very typical. It's very typical. Many people, when you ask them in retrospect, they are like, oh, yes, I used to have it sometimes. I don't know if that was the case with you. And then you also have sometimes some people will have what you say bloody shake from my eye. What people say that. Yeah. It's like flickering vision, and sometimes people might have that. So just check. It could be it. Sometimes nose bleeding, especially when it's not harmattan. When it's harmattan, because of the dryness, the air could be so dry. And your blood vessels which line your nostrils could crack and bleed. Just check. But if it's not harmattan, it's even more reason for you to check, because it means your blood pressure has increased so much that those blood vessels have burst and are bleeding. So nose bleeding, check. What else?
Great. We have a very long question that I even cannot read. This is from T. Tande. T. Tande, I'm going to contact you because you are on my list for a podcast with your cooking show. I have been watching you, so I'm glad you're making this comment. Dr. SEA, can you read her question?
Yeah, she's just giving us acknowledgement. She's just giving us acknowledgement, and we're thanking her. She doesn't really ask a question, lifestyle, and healthy habits. We understand that we need the awareness in our community even more. So thank you. Thank you for all what you do as well, T. Tande, and looking forward to seeing you again in Chicago. It's been close to 10 years.
Oh, ladies, you have to make something happen. But this is the thing, talking about the awareness. Your dad had diabetes. Growing up, you wouldn't link this with yourself. Okay, we are educated enough to go through all of this to acknowledge. However, I must confess that with my own case, looking at the way things went, we had to go deep down to what is the root cause of this sudden peak of high blood pressure. Guess what we found? We did scans. And unfortunately, for the existence of my life, I never knew I was born with just one kidney. And that was the reason for my high blood pressure.
Very good. Thank you for bringing that in.
I have to be honest. I have to tell people, yes, I did not know I am 44 years old. And I knew just last year that I was born with a defect in my kidney. So had there been an accident, something happened, then something happened. It's not witchcraft, but I did not know. If we did not go down to find out why this problem, sudden peak, I wouldn't have ever known. You know, I made a mistake. I don't know. I wanted to come up here with that scan to really show people what it looks like to have one kidney.
Yeah.
That's the mistake I did. I bought my medication, but I should have bought that scan. And these are the things we should be aware.
Yeah, we should be
no one
aware
is
of.
talking about. But when you start talking to people, they're like, "Oh, me too. Oh, me too." And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. So, I'm very glad you raised that point, because that also goes to confirm what I said. Just check. With young people, when we have such a crisis, we ask the question, why? Because usually, such values, you won't have them at a very young age. To what we would call secondary hypertension that is caused by something else, not what they can explain. And that would include checking your kidney values, checking your kidneys, because very often deformations or disorders or conditions affecting the kidney would affect your high blood pressure. Actually, there are so many medications, even one of those that you're taking, they regulate the blood pressure through the kidney. They regulate the kidney function and then the blood pressure. So the kidney and blood pressure, they really, really work in hand. Some other people, it could even be some sort of cancer which produces hormones which take up your high blood pressure. So they'll also check differently in that case. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I cannot hold back appreciating you again for being so honest with who is watching. And I'm so sure you're connecting to somebody this moment with your story. Thank you again, Lillian.
It's a pleasure. If we can save a life, I was this close. I was very close. So if we can save a life with this kind of discussion, but that brings us to another headache. To the next question is, I am fortunate enough to be in a developed country. I'm fortunate enough to have a private insurance, because normal insurance, they would take their own time. But for those in Africa, how can we go when we have this medication and we have these high levels all of a sudden? Where do we run to? Because in Cameroon, for example, there are not many scans. Maybe in Limbe now, I saw you on the internet with a new center in Limbe, which you have an imaginary machine from Italy. How do we do? What do we do? What kind of preventive can we do when we are in this mode close to death?
We have a huge problem in the healthcare industry back home. But the good thing is there's also some progress. One thing about healthcare that we don't talk about often is the link between healthcare and infrastructure.
Yes.
And until we really accept that we could have the best hospital in Chisong, we could have the best hospital in Limbe, but if our people cannot access it, especially in the raining season, it doesn't really help us. So infrastructure is linked one-to-one to healthcare. So we have these problems of lack of infrastructure, lack of even the health infrastructure itself, the hospitals, the machines and all of that. But one thing I can give it up for my colleagues who work in Africa is they still know how to do medicines without machines. And those are the things I enjoy when I go down there. We are all into all this operative medicine. They still do medicines with your 5 senses. And I really give it up to my colleagues for that. That is because of lack of infrastructure, lack of shortage of doctors, shortage of personnel, shortage of machines, and even medication sometimes. We need to focus the conversation on awareness and on prevention. It shouldn't get there that we start looking for how to manage.
That's why we are here. That's why we are here to talk. Spread the news. It shouldn't.
Crisis, because we don't have the mechanisms to manage those crises. Yeah. So we need this conversation. It's prevention is better than cure. We say that every day, and we need to practice that. Then, coming back to your question, where do you go to? Please go to the next health center if you're having symptoms. We have what I call the traditional pathway to the doctor in our settings. The traditional pathway to our doctors, that is what I call it, is you have symptoms, two things. You tell your sister, you tell your neighbor, and she says, oh, I was having those kind of symptoms. Doctor, give me the maximum drink. I need to take and drink them.
Yes.
That's classic. Yeah.
Yes.
It comes very often. You drink it. You don't know what you're drinking. You don't know why you have those symptoms. You take it first. You might feel better, maybe even just based on the fact that you took a tablet, what we would call the placebo effect. You get better.
Yes.
That's a feeling, but the condition is getting worse. The symptoms come back. What do? You go to the roadside drug store.
Yeah.
You don't even know where his medications are coming from. This guy is sitting there with a basing of drugs under an umbrella. Some of those medications are supposed to be stored in refrigerators and and he's sitting there with them under the sun. You buy it, and sometimes they're even more expensive than those in the pharmacy. And I even had a woman tell me that, even people from the pharmacy buy from them and resell in the pharmacy because these are imported drugs. So you take that, you're adding, salt to injury without knowing. Then it gets really worse. Sorry, that's my neighbor coming in and the noise in the background. And then you now go and consult who? Country, right?
Yeah.
Country gives you, first of all, I really believe in traditional African medicine. Don't get me wrong. Right now, I actually work in a clinic where we combine traditional German medicine and school medicine and traditional Chinese medicine to treat patients. So I believe in traditional medicine. But unfortunately, we have a lot of charlatans as well out there. So in this case, I'm talking about charlatans, right? Yeah. If you're unlucky, you fall into the hands of one of them. And they always give you reasons. So the simple fact that they can give you an explanation, already takes your symptoms down, right?
Yeah.
Then, so you always feel a subjective sense of improvement initially, right? Some of the things might take out symptoms, but not necessarily the cure of the basics.
Yes.
Then you've spent all your money. Trust me, when they tell you to go and buy a file for ritual, plus razor blades, plus this, that, some of them are even more expensive than state subsidized listed medications, honestly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So most of them live there when they're getting even worse. That's when they now go to the hospital. So to me, that is what I call the traditional. So what we find in many of our hospitals, especially the government-run hospitals, because they are cheaper. At that time, most of these people are already financially at the bottom, so weak they cannot afford private hospitals, so they land in government-run hospitals. So we now have a government-run hospital which functions as a recipient of actually the Walking Dead, when they can't really do much about you.
Yeah,
that goes to
I get your point.
Statistics and affect even it goes to reinforce this feeling we have in society that people just go to hospitals to die. But we collectively can break that cycle if we start with awareness.
But it's so difficult. I would take my case, for example. When I talk like you talk, we understand each other. But educating that other generation is so difficult to get through. What do we do?
I really don't think it's difficult. Going by my experience, I think in educating we have to first of all communicate. We have to first of all communicate because we have to communicate by coming down to their level. It shouldn't look like I'm up here and I'm telling you what you need to do. It should be we all have this problem and we are collectively looking for a solution. This is what I know because of my profession. This is what I see. I might be right, I might be wrong. How can we all work around this? And I've had very good experiences, especially if you speak in the language which the people understand. One of the reasons why we do our videos in Fijian English,
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, so,
I agree
and
with
I
you, but
see a trend
let me
where
explain to
more
you
and more
the
people.
reason.
Yeah, you go
Yeah,
ahead.
let me
Sorry.
explain to you the reason why I say it's so difficult to really bring our points through. Let's go back to the point of being, prevention is better than cure.
Yeah.
Take the amount of sodium we use in cooking. Let's start from there. Go tell your mommy, your bakore mommy, say, mommy, no put Maggi for chop or reduce Maggi. That's when the trouble starts. It's at their level. I'm not bringing a book up, but just at that level. How do you?
You've brought up a very interesting example. We did a workshop in Boya in December, and
Yes.
when we explained everything that was in Maggi, the people were like, "Wow!" And I know people
Yeah.
who have taken Maggi off their recipes, out of their kitchens till today. So I think we have the progress. It's slow, but
Okay.
we need multiplicators. We need multiplicators. We need the awareness. Do you know how much advert the firm Maggi did to sell what we call
Yeah.
Maggi in the whole of West Africa, not just in Cameroon, in the whole of West Africa, right?
Yes.
So much
They are
that
so
even though
powerful.
Maggi
Yeah.
is actually a product from the West, even the Africans who live here still believe in that Maggi they buy in Africa to send back to
Me
them.
too. Oh,
This
me too.
year,
Me too. Oh, I
so
must
that
agree. I must confess.
so
I
that
must.
that is how much they invested in publicity, right? So that reflects how much work we will need to do just to get only Maggi off the kitchen, talk less of other things. So we should not undermine our efforts. We are getting there. We need more hands on board. More health initiatives are coming up. Every day, I see more and more young people starting up something about health, talking about health. I'm happy that it's happening. As it is said, the fields are ripe and huge, the workers are few, and everybody should get their hands on board and do something.
Yeah.
I'm not looking
Good.
at
Good.
today, I'm looking at 25 years down the road, and I think we'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But I still cannot imagine my area without Maggie. How are we going to manage? And we will survive.
Just
All
the
right.
same. And that's a risk we run. Look at you now. That's a risk we run, right? What you're just trying to tell me is I'm trying very hard to re-educate my taste buds,
Yes.
re-educate what I consider good taste, re-educate what I consider good flavor, my
Yes.
taste buds. That is what you're telling
Yes.
me now.
Yes.
And this is just to Maggie. At the level of your cells, you also have your metabolism, which also gets used to the things we eat. And that is how you see maybe someone who was thin and out of social pressure, peer pressure, did everything to get fat. And at some point, they're trying to get off those those calories, and they don't seem to get it off anymore because they've reprogrammed their entire metabolism.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now taking it to child obesity, which is what I fear for our generations, for our kids coming up.
Yeah.
When a 4-year, 5-year-old tell me, Auntie, I don't eat stew, I eat ketchup, and she
No,
was
that's
doing that to prove a point to me, to tell me she's better off, right? I wonder what we are programming in their body
no. I did
for
not.
the
I did
next
not
10
expect.
years.
I did not expect to hear that a child in Africa would prefer ketchup to stew.
Yeah,
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
yes, yes, yeah. Or
Wow.
how many young mothers I spoke to who no longer give their kids milk, but they gave them something they buy from the supermarket. Um,
Mm.
it has Chinese label on it, so they don't even know what they're giving their children.
Wow.
Meanwhile,
Okay.
fresh vegetables and fruits are rotting in the background. We have a problem of
Yes.
food processing. So we have a lot of education to do, and they're all doing that because they want to fit in. It cannot be that my
Yes,
father to my child works with this company, is an engineer, and I cannot buy them food from a supermarket. It's not about that. It's about what are you buying? Are you throwing your money out of the window?
exactly.
Or even what?
Yeah,
Are you using your money to buy ill health for your child? Those are the
yeah,
conversations we
yeah,
need to have.
yeah. And I'm happy you brought this up because this has sparked some kind of conflict. The Kinder Surprise that we have Kinder Surprise, the eggs
Yeah, 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 yeah.
here
I
in
hope you can
Switzerland.
still see.
Yeah, that's much better. Can you put your maybe down a little bit because the sun is moving
Me.
yeah, that's better. That's better. So yeah, we are no longer buying that Kinder Surprise because the kids are not really, for us, our kids really don't eat chocolate.
Okay.
But can you imagine the amount of chocolate that the kids would need to eat to have a complete set of what they're looking in this Kinder Surprise? It's all marketing. And in
Yeah.
Switzerland, parents are really fighting, to take these things off the shelf because it's too much sugar. And yeah, I'm so happy that we are having this conversation. Now, it may sound to so many people that it may sound so negative. However, after all is said and done, there is change. There is a new generation coming and the mentality is improving and more younger people are taking care of themselves. We see trends that are changing like juicing stores and well-being in Abuja, Nairobi, or
In
Cape Town, just to
Douala,
name a few.
in Boya, even in Moliko, one of my
Okay.
best spots.
Exactly. So you see, change is happening, but however, this is still the minority. Health costs are increasing worldwide. And I'm afraid, you may say this is not a personal problem. Is Africa ready for what's coming? Is Africa ready?
No, unfortunately not, because um, we already have a huge burden of infectious diseases to deal with. HIV/AIDS,
Yes,
Ebola, cholera,
yes, yes,
poliomyelitis, um, you name them. Malaria, how could I even forget that? Typhoid,
yeah,
worm infections. We haven't been able to deal with those. And at the same time, because of the boom going on, the economic boom, or call
yeah,
progress, I don't really like to call it boom, we have this group of people who are adapting to the so-called Western life as a status symbol and programming themselves for an explosion of non-communicable diseases, diabetes, hypertension, coronary heart disease, stroke, and even cancers. The things we used to call rich people disease when we were kids. But now,
yeah,
rich people disease have become everybody's disease because of the shift in the economics, the availability of these products in our African market, and the dumping effect. Yeah, the
yes,
dumping impact from the West of these products in
yes.
our markets. Yeah.
Mm.
So we are not ready. And that is why we need to start having these conversations now. And our governments need to understand that. If you look at when people get knocked out due to health reasons in a community, look at you, you were just 44. That's still in the middle of your productive life. These are
Yeah,
the people that the government needs for growing economies, especially at
yes,
44, 45, when you're preparing your last percentile to go for retirement. Those are the
yes,
people who hand over the skills and knowledge to those coming out from school. When we knock
yes,
them out, that's a double blow to the economy,
yeah,
right? We take off the sustainability, we take off productivity. That is even at the macro level. At the micro
yeah.
level, if that person involved is the sole breadwinner,
Mm. Hmm. I think, yes, we got cut off.
the bread family, let me just, if that person is a sole breadwinner, um, the chances are their kids might not be able to go to school. So that's another generation we're knocking off progression.
Yeah.
It's normal that you go to funerals and you hear kids screaming, who go send me for school? Where my father
Yes.
died, who go send me for school? They don't even have the luxury to mourn their dad, the loss of a person. They are crying for their progress, for their education. So we need to be sensitive to these things. We're talking about a
Yes.
widow who will have to maybe fight the cultural battles first before she can even get back to her feet to be able to provide for her kids. And many of such conditions can be prevented if people are aware and take better care of themselves, especially business people and especially business women as well. Because when we do business, when we think we need to catch up with certain standards, what do we do? Some of us even stop drinking water. We now drink but juice. Look at what you drink juice. Actually, you're drinking a glass of sugar each time you finish that.
Yes.
If you walk
Yes.
around Boya, you see many of startups and things, and they're all drinking.
Oh no. Yeah. It's not going right. But I'm so grateful for this conversation. Grateful for all the live viewers.
Juice no
We have Anne, Betty, Justin, Doreen, Justin. So many people online. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for staying with us. And Dr. SEA, can you hear me? I think the internet is a problem. Yeah, I think she's off now. Let's see if she'll be able to come back. This is such an amazing conversation. I'm so grateful. Okay, she's back. Dr. SEA is back. Okay. Yes, she's back. Then we can see. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time. And it's really amazing talking to you. But before we let you go, yes, this is much better. Before we let you go, what one advice would you like to give to the African businesswoman today? You just told us to stop trying to fit in, stop following this style or a la mode. What is one practical advice we can start implementing in our lives today as Africans, as women, or as business women in general?
Practical. Make a good work-life balance lifestyle.
Yes. Yes.
Make it lifestyle. Make the changes, make a list of the changes you like to make, be it weight loss, be it activity, and not necessarily sports. We have to be careful about trends. We have this whole fitness trends going on right now. Yeah.
Yes.
You don't necessarily need to be a fitness guru to be fit. International recommendations recommend 30 minutes of average activity, that is of moderate intensity, right? 5 days a week.
Okay.
So and that could lead to 10% reduction of your risk. Yeah. So it's practical. Yeah. For example, to get that, instead of catching a cab to work, you can walk to work in the morning, or catch a cab to come back home, or walk to work and walk back home. Right? It's practical. And that also sports also gives you a work-life balance, right? For mommies back home.
Okay, I think.
One come, say, pick me that knife, give me. Wake up and pick the knife. That is physical activity.
Yes. Yes. Sitting right there, and it's like, give me the bowl.
And after just eating the fufu, so you don't. Another thing you can do is reducing the amount of calorie intake. Yeah. And I'm taking in a lot of fibers like vegetables, fruits, and stuff. What they do is they help to regulate the uptake of sugar in the body and the uptake of cholesterol. So that's kind of practical. Reduce the size of your fufu and catch up with that gap with more njangsi, more eru, more okra, and stuff like that. That's practical. And then one thing, especially business people, busy bees like us forget, is good sleep. Good sleep
Yes.
is right. Good sleep is key. If you leave people, if sleeplessness leads to increase in high blood pressure, and
Yes. Yes.
and and
Yes.
when you sleep, that is when you build down cortisol, which is stress hormones.
Mhm.
If you don't build that down, what cortisol does, it helps also to take your pressure high. It increases your drive for sugar, so it gives you hunger, you eat more. It also dysregulates your blood sugar levels. So we have what we call the cortisol induced diabetes as well.
Mhm.
So you think you want to achieve so much, but just make sure yourself in that
Mhm.
your workspace.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful you brought up this point about sleep because this has caused some also problems. My kids, they are 4 and 6, and I put them to bed at 8.
Yeah,
Coming from Africa, I did not sleep a lot. I think I had a problem with sleep. I would be up at 2, I would be up at 3, walking all to, and then this high blood pressure came in. So I had this machine to measure, over 24 hours my blood pressure, and you
yeah,
could see the values at night. I don't sleep. So I had to go, and the doctor said, if you don't sleep, we are going to put you through a sleep therapy. So I had to
yeah.
force myself, try and try to sleep. So now at least I get 6 to 7 hours sleep per day. But when I tell people you have to sleep, they think like, oh, she's trying to save electricity, because I tell my kids 8, you are going to bed. And I would try
That's a
to
good
be at
one.
bed at 10, but they think like she wants to save electricity bill or something. She's saying, go to bed, go to bed,
Mhm.
go to bed. So I'm happy somebody else is saying it, because sleep. Who is this famous American? She's Greek, who is now chasing the Uber drivers that they should get enough sleep. She wrote the book Thrive, Not Survive. What's her name again?
Okay.
The Huffington
I
Post,
don't know her. Okay.
Adriana, yeah, something. And she wrote this amazing book, and now she's going through the entire US and the schools to really educate people on the importance of sleep. And we in
Yeah.
Africa, we need to learn to sleep. We are late to go to bed, and at 3 in the morning, you hear all the pots and the pans that boom, 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 as though there is war. We need to sleep. It's so important.
Sometimes
We
you're
need.
lucky if it's just the pots and pans. Nowadays we have the pastors. Oh, seriously, we have the pastors. So the churches start praying at midnight
Oh God.
till 4. And then when they leave, the one that comes with the car with the megaphone on it to scream for salvation. And when that
Oh,
goes off, the mosque takes off. We all have a right to worship. But I think we also need some regulations as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The body needs to rest. The body needs to rest. And another mistake I was doing is like I drink a lot of water. I would even wake
Yeah.
up in the night to drink water. It's a good thing to drink water. But then I'm, keeping my body, it's working all the time. It's active
Yeah.
all the time. There is no rest for my body. And these are all the things I had to learn and to stop doing. And yeah, it's a long process. So thank you so much. We need you. The work you're doing in Africa is amazing. I saw you were in Ghana. You're working in Cameroon a lot. Please
Yeah.
don't stop the good work. We need you. We need you. The situation is bad. It's really bad. And
It is.
I don't
It
know
is.
how how how.
And there's a lot we can do just in just education. Okay, talking about sleep to bring it to our African context even more. There's a point I
Yeah.
really always like making because there it's a practical step that we can also help our parents to help themselves. We
Yeah.
have this tradition of wake keeping.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have 3 people in my family who all collapsed on a Sunday, right?
Oh.
2 did not make it.
Oh.
Unfortunately, autopsy is something is not so common in our my medical knowledge and observations. I will insist on observations. We will realize that most corpse removals in our community are on Fridays.
Yes.
Wakekeeping on Fridays. Then they leave for the village. on Saturday, and they leave that night. So they're on the road. They get to the village, do the burial, get back on the road to come back. So that's the second night or second day. No real rest, no real sleep. And Sunday, they have to be in church. That's the third day. They are functioning without sleep. What happens with your blood pressure? Just imagine if you're here we have studies which prove that especially older people who do work at night, many of them have strokes at night because because of the lack of sleep, and the blood pressure now goes up at night. So I really do not want to think. We're so interested. If there's anybody out there who is doing a study on this in Cameroon, I'm very interested in your data. I would like to analyze the data with you. I would like to even help collect some more data with you so we can really have data to show our institutions and come up with possible solutions or educative programs. We have our cultures and we have to preserve them, but cultures also come with modifications as well.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Families no longer live together like they used to do back in the village, where you could, if it's in the village, they'll leave the cows, maybe go home, sleep for 4 hours, come back. But now you have to travel hours. And all of that, we have to take all of these into the consideration of our new biosphere and look more into our cultures. What can be modified so that we can preserve our kind? We can't afford to be extinct.
Yeah.
So you can help your parents if they are going. If you're there, you can, in a nice way, let them have some more sleep. Okay, mommy, we don't be there for 2 hours. Can't go sleep small. We'll come back from morning, or, not necessarily always with the iron hand, but certainly and collectively be that change we need.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the road is long. It's long. I mean, but it's good to start the conversation. It's really good to start the conversation, but it's going to be a difficult one. Where do they sleep? How do they sleep? All this kind of talk. They're going to miss the food. They're going to miss these drinks. All the gossips. Oof. Okay, but we have to start it anyway. My last question to you is the African woman ready to make these changes? What are your observations?
Oh, yes. And how? Look at you. You're an African woman. You didn't call me so that we just have some sweet gossip about the latest fashion or who is saying who,
That's the next step.
Yeah. You are a mother. You have kids. It's your Saturday. You've worked the whole week. And here we are having this conversation because we want to do something about it in our community. And trust me, we are just two. I could call a few names, right?
Yeah.
Especially around Boya. I know so many I'm so impressed. Young medical doctors who do not only see their job as a 9 to 5, they go out to reach out to the community. So we have many women who are out doing some work, and especially in church associations. And I think we can still instrumentalize our country meetings. We can instrumentalize our alumni associations, and women are interested. They're very interested.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. So that gives us some motivation and courage to carry on, to keep going. So somebody said here today, Ngumta says, you cannot really, let me put back the question, you cannot really sleep if you have a lot of problem in your mind. Ngum, I would suspect that these problems are not always there, there's one problem after the other. But if you don't sleep, you're adding one more problem to that problem. Dr. SEA, what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point you made there. Another thing about not sleeping when you have problems. You're very right, Ngumta, but you can also train your mind. Many of us, many people, including me, I had to learn that, right?
Me too.
We let our minds to rule us. We forget that just like your hand, your leg, your head is a part of your body, so it's your mind. You don't allow your hand to start doing whatever thing it wants to do, your leg to start doing whatever thing it wants to do. So we allow our minds as well to just dream away sometimes without controlling it, right? We have mechanisms to do that. What works for me, I'll recommend what works for me. At the end of the day, or let's say every day we always have to do all things on our list, things we need to do. But I prioritize a maximum of 3. You have the must-haves, the should-haves, and the nice-to-have. The nice-to-have, they are last. The must-have, not a maximum, seriously, not a maximum of 3, right? If those 3 things have been done that day, my day is done. I will keep doing the other things, but not under the pressure to get it done, right?
Yeah.
And when I go to bed at night, what I try to do to cut down stress is, I'm not very successful at that one yet. I try to get all my technology away from me like 30 minutes before before my bedtime.
Yeah.
I'm still fighting with that, trust me. I guess that's not news to anybody. Anyway.
Yeah, it's not me.
But
me, I have the same problem. So
yeah. To help me calm down, I count down 3 things. 3 things which I'm happy about for that day. No matter how much problems I have in my mind. 3 things. And sometimes they are as small as maybe I call my friend or my sister and I hear the voice of my nephew in the background making noise, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes that is just what you need to save your day. Right? 3 things. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Now, the next question is traditional rights will be missed. We are not saying that you should banish the tradition. We are saying you should adapt it to the era in which we live. We did not say we should. Dr. SEA, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, I mean, don't get us wrong. We are not against I think I can relocate now, so the logo can show in the background. Means traditions? No, it's about modifications, right? I remember when we were growing up, it was standard. When you lost somebody, you had to shave your hair, walk around in black cloth for 1 year and stuff. A lot of that has been modified as well. Some people choose to mourn in different ways. They give up a particular color. They use a particular color and stuff like that. I think the rights must not be lost. Just look at because of health hazards, we no longer have wakekeeping with corpses in many cities in Cameroon.
But there are so many countries. Yeah, so many countries have also stopped that. So
yes, because of health hazards. So are we losing a traditional right in that sense? Yes. Was it a necessary change? Yes. So modifications. We have a lot of stuff that we need to that could be modified. I'm for tradition, but I'm also for progressive development.
Great. Next question from Karawa. Jone says, Doc, can you touch on the effect of excess red oil in Eru? I love this one because you have something with Eru. You wrote an article on Eru, so let's hear you.
A well-researched article, actually. Yeah, I like his question because his question answers itself. His question says excess red oil. So the problem is the excess, not the red oil, right?
Yes.
Scientific findings on red oil, are very interesting. Sometimes even contradictory. And but red oil, to make it plain, in its natural form, that is unbleached, right? It's actually good. Has a lot of, so the problem is the excess. So excess oil is not good. Red oil is not the problem. Excess is not good. And bleaching it is actually not good at all. And I would like to use, it is. And I would like to use this opportunity to address one thing. We now have this whole vibe about, we like anything that is foreign. We're so programmed to embrace anything foreign. And we have this trend where we now import palm oil, and mostly because it is
really
not sticky, it's being sticky. It's bleaching. You
Oh,
get it? It's
yeah.
manipulated. So we create more trans fats in the
Yeah.
process.
Yes, yes, yes. Good. Next question. Education is from
That's really happen.
Jana Vera. It says, education to this issue, I believe, must also begin at foundation level. Primary
Yeah,
school, for example,
yeah,
as a child back in Cameroon, even my domestic science classes did not elaborate on the risk of some of these food poses. Example, salt. It is easy to bend a young bang than a matured one. Thanks for the
yeah,
okay. So what she's saying is that it's good to start at the foundation level. She's right. That's where we start.
yeah. She's right.
Looking at my
She's very
kids
right.
now, yeah, going to school at 4 and 6, they already know how to separate their waste. They put organic bottles. If you start at this age, then they have no problem. But later on, then it's going to be a problem. So Vera is right. What, Dr. SEA?
Yeah, she's right. We need to introduce that. When we're in primary school, we have what we call nature studies. I don't know if they still have it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Nature studies, you know, and I think it's still not so good that we reduce domestic sciences only to the girls and royal sciences only to
Yeah,
the boys. At least in the days it was like that. I hope that has changed. So I think nature studies is one area where we could introduce that. Why not?
yeah,
Brilliant.
yeah. Mm. And I hope, let's see, another question from Anne. She says, a lot of these traditions don't make sense. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Anne, for that comment.
Yes. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Anne. So, my dear, it was a pleasure having you. But before we leave, the Cameroonians in us must say something to our French audience. Je voulais juste remercier infiniment Dr. SEA pour toutes les informations qu'elle vient de nous fournir gratuitement, avec beaucoup d'amour, beaucoup de patience. Je vous prie de bien vouloir prendre contact avec elle pour avoir plus d'informations concernant votre santé. Je vous prie de parler autour de vous, parmi votre famille, vos amis, car nous sommes en crise. L'Afrique ne peut pas continuer comme ça. L'Afrique ne peut pas aller à cette vitesse-là. Nous allons tous tomber malades, mais très, très malades. Il est temps d'agir. Alors, Dr. SEA, je vous remercie infiniment. Merci pour tout le beau travail le travaux que vous faites en Afrique, au Ghana, au Cameroun, au Nigeria. Mille merci. Et nous prions que vous allez avoir tout le courage que vous avez besoin de continuer. Et nous vous souhaitons une agréable soirée. Merci beaucoup. So, thank you so much for your time.
Aussi. Merci prochainement. Merci prochainement. J'espère que j'aurai l'occasion de parler aussi en français. Je suis en train d'améliorer mon français, mais prions que à la prochaine fois,
nous allons faire en français.
La possibilité de faire en français, soit ça, soit les sous-titres en français aussi, c'est possible. Mais nous sommes bilingues chez drSEA.com, Dr. SEA Initiative. Nous sommes sur Facebook comme Dr. SEA Initiative, sur Twitter comme Dr. SEA Official, sur Instagram aussi. Dans notre site internet, c'est www.drsea.com. Dans n'importe quelle langue que vous parlez, on parle aussi en allemand, anglais, pidgin. Donc, nous sommes toujours pour vous là. Et une fois de plus, merci Liliane d'avoir nous donné cette opportunité.
Mille merci à vous, mille merci. Alors, je tiens à vous dire à quel point je vous apprécie et j'espère que la communauté africaine va profiter de votre sagesse, de votre intelligence et c'est sans aucun doute que je crois que nous allons continuer cette conversation. Bravo à vous. Si quelqu'un aimerait contacter Dr. SEA, il faut aller sur son site internet qui est drsea.com. Elle est aussi drSEA.com. Elle est aussi également sur Facebook, Instagram, sur tous les réseaux sociaux. Alors, contactez Dr SEA, posez toutes vos questions. Elle est là pour vous. Nous avons la chance d'avoir quelqu'un comme ça. Alors, profitez. Merci beaucoup et à la prochaine. Merci à tous. Merci Ngoum, Galvis, Kawara, Anne.
Betty Abeng, I saw her somewhere there. I also saw Batsin, quite a few people.
Michou. Il y avait beaucoup de gens aujourd'hui. Nous sommes reconnaissants. Justine,
Anne Metiga,
Betty,
our fashion lady. Thank you so much for joining. And Dory Berry. Wow. Oh my God.
Il y avait aussi Woro, Annette, Betty, Anne. Mais dis donc, quel succès! Vous êtes bien aimée, ma chérie.
Thank you. Oh, Fun Elvis. Thank you too. Cheryl from Munich. Thank you. Cheryl is my sister from Germany. Thank you so much. Dankeschön. Thank you all. And if I didn't call your name, I still give you a big thank you.
Doctor, you have to give Ngu for Mende really a shout out. Doctor, you will have to do.
Of course, Ngu, he's my man. You know, I need to give him the shout out because if I don't, he's going to come at me with some serious injackery. So Ngu, I got you right here.
That's favoritism. Ngu, how did you find your way to right there to our heart? How did you find your way? Vielen Dank.
Und jokes to get me.
Okay, vielen Dank, Dr. SEA, und alles Gute. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. Ciao.
Okay, tschüss.